Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Hidden Agenda. Um, Sorry, I'm running a little bit behind here. We've got people actually over looking at the house right now. Hopefully, we've got a sale for it. Woohoo! Um, Retirement's coming quick, and so my fan club will know I'm still moving. I'm leaving. Uh, anyway, I just want to kind of go over some stuff from last night. And I want to, when I'm going through this stuff here, I want to try to clarify some stuff for you guys here. Um, there's a lot of misunderstanding about things, and we heard a lot of it last night as well. And it's no slight to any of the candidates that were actually there last night. I mean, it's just a matter of there's a lot of information that was put out last night that's just not true. And there's a misunderstanding about it, and I think it's vital that you know how things actually operate and work. And I think it's just as vital for the candidates. Before we dig into this here, I do want to say, I'll give a shout out to Z99 and Lexington Progress for hosting this event last night. I think it's a good way for candidates to get out there in a mass sense where more people can see them and can hear them and have at least a couple of questions, ask a few questions. But it's I would truly love to see an on-stage debate with the mayor candidates, or on-stage debate with the sheriff's candidates, where there's no prep for questions. Here it is. Let's dig it out here. This is what we're dealing with, and see how the candidates actually respond. Um, I really think that that would be and give them a chance to rebuttal and back and forth. I mean, I would love to see something like that there, but we deal with what we have to deal with. But anyway, again, thanks to Z99, and Don over there, and Lexington Progress for coming over and making this here happen for the citizens. I think it's a good thing. And I also will say something here too. I want to preface this here with in regards to the candidates. The public speaking is not easy. Getting up in front of an audience, in front of a camera, and talking, it's not easy. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's nervousness shines through. I mean, you just see it, and there's nothing wrong with that. There, I mean, just some people are just not comfortable in front of the camera or in front of an audience, and that's okay. To an extent, I will say this here is we do have to have. It does play a role, as far as if there's any information ever put out to the public, if you're standing in front of a reporter or something, I mean, information conveying that information does make an impact. So it does have some value, but I just want you to understand what you saw a lot of last night. There was a lot of nervousness, and it was easy to see. We're going to jump into the sheriff's race on this thing here to start with. I'm going to say this here. I think that there was some, again, some nervousness in there, but I'm going to say things, and it's probably going to upset people, and that's okay. I mean, I'm pretty good at that there. And when we get finished recapping this here, there's something else too that I want to bring forth with you guys about some changes that's happening on the page, at least temporarily, and some of the things that we're looking at doing. And it's going to be harsh, but it is what it is. So anyway, let's jump into this thing here with the candidates. Last night they started with the sheriff's candidates. Now I've had one thing I do want to say also before we head. There are quite a few breaks in there. I've had a lot of people tell me about the breaks. What that's for is you got to remember Z99 is actually doing this here live. So when they're doing it live, they take a minute break every now and then so that they can do a live commercial. So I mean, they still got to make money to support their business and what they're doing. So that's one of the reasons that we heard a lot of these 1 minute breaks that happened last night. Don't read anything into it. It wasn't trying to correct issues or anything. I mean, it's just what it was. And yes, there was some issues with the mic at the podium for the speakers. Terrible isolation. Every time they would take a step, going across, you could hear a low rumble. It was very prevalent, and yeah, they touched the stand, and it echoed. Just it was not good. Noise rejection from the microphone that they were using there. I don't know what mics they were using. I know at one point they actually had Shure Wireless, which would have had really good noise rejection. But so if you heard noise in the recording last night, that's it is what it is. It's just noise coming across through the system, and it was mainly on the podium mic. Anyway, so let's dig into this here. What they did was they brought the candidates up. They drew names out of a hat to pick the number or whatever it may be, and then they went in that order. Then everybody got 3 minutes to do an intro sales pitch, and then they reversed the order and they started asking questions. Now there was 3 questions asked of every candidate. 2 of the questions the candidates had the questions beforehand. The 3rd question was asked right then on the spot, so they had to respond to it. And so that's how it went. And then at the very end, they also had a few more minutes to come back in here and make a closing sales pitch. So what's happening? I'll give you this here. The first, and it really wasn't a candidate. The first person to actually get up and speak was Paul Dunaway. He was representing Brad Atkinson. Now we had put a post up about this here yesterday. Brad was in Alabama. His daughter had a tournament down there. He had already reserved a room down there, so he'd spent money on doing this with his daughter before this date was ever selected, before he knew about when the date was going to be. So he chose to do this here. It's his daughter's senior year in school, so he chose to skip this here so he'd go spend time with his daughter in her senior year in the ball tournament. So anyway, that's the reason Brad wasn't there, and that's the reason Paul was allowed to speak on his behalf for the introductions in the beginning. Now Paul did not answer any questions, and Paul did not have a closing statement for Brad. It was just that intro. So anyway, that's how we kick this thing here off. From there, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to just kind of give an overall view. A lot of what you heard across the board is, I can't say this any other way, it was all scripted. The one candidate that to me was not scripted was Tracy Grisham. I don't believe Tracy had any papers whatsoever when he went up to the podium to speak. The rest of them did have papers of some kind, but Tracy just kind of went up there and shot from the cuff. He provided a little bit of humor. I would say Tracy, he looked pretty comfortable back behind the podium and speaking what he had to say, and came across pretty good. I'm going to say this here: he was probably the strongest candidate and the sheriff's conversation up there. I'd say coming in behind him would be Richard King. Richard King, he was well spoken. He listed his accolades. Um, the only thing I would sit there that just I've heard things about last time he's been in law enforcement, and I was a little bit. I think he kind of came across a little bit uninspired. He just kind of lacked a strong personality in presenting it. But for the most part, he did a pretty good job as well. Who else was in there? We had Terry Moody. He was very short and to the point with his answers. I mean, and again, if you go back in here and you kind of listen to this stuff here and how it went across, it was very, very well scripted. I mean, it's kind of like they had notes to work off of, and that's kind of where they stayed in their comfort zones. They really didn't branch out that much outside of their comfort zones. Larry Segal, he came up there with papers, and Larry pretty much was reading down the papers, and that's what he was going through. When after I think it was opening statements were 3 minutes. I think after 2.5 minutes they had a little chime that dinged, and that gave them a 30-second notification that, hey, in 30 seconds you're done. And this is one of the things I was saying with Larry. He was reading down. When the ding went off, instead of kind of improving and kind of closing out his opening statement, he just continued to read down. And then mid-sentence he got cut off when the second ding came in to announce that his time was over. So, it is what it is. I mean, looking at it from that perspective. The other ones kind of did a fairly decent job to improvise as the time was running out. I don't know if Terry even got any dings or not. He was very short and to the point with what he had to say. But overall, I think that it was informative. The third question that they all got asked was a random question. Again, I'd probably say Tracy had the strongest response with his. He kind of knew how to handle the subject material better than the other ones did. And Richard kind of reiterated the stuff that he was saying. I'd almost say playing it safe. Terry kind of, I think his was in regards to school officers because he's an SRO. And just kind of, I really didn't gather a lot what he was saying, what his conversation was about. It just kind of seemed like, we're stepping through this here. And Larry's one was about what other programs he would implement outside of like the reentry program that we have right now. And he did bring up something earlier in one of the questions about having a faith-based program, faith-based program, and he reiterated that there, but really didn't elaborate any more on any other programs. But it's well worth watching the video to go back in there and listen and pay attention to what's happening. But and I don't mean to be ugly by saying this here, but I really wasn't driven that much by what was being said and the sheriff's conversation. It just lacked. I don't know how to say this here. It just kind of lacked. Just didn't inspire me. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's just. I just don't think that. I don't think it really hit home so much. Where I'm just like, wow, there's no doubt in my mind. I'm casting a vote here, and that's where it's at. That just didn't come across to me. But anyway, the mayor's conversation was a whole different ballgame. We got to see quite a bit. We got to hear some very good thoughts, and that was I was quite impressed with the mayor's side of things. There's definitely some there's definitely some things to consider in it. and we'll kind of tag in there and get into it some. And this, with the mayor side, is where I started kind of seeing uh, kind of a lack of knowledge or understanding on certain things. And well, to me, that kind of bugged me a little bit because if you're running for mayor, you should, and if you're running for mayor, sheriff, or whatever position, you should have already really been studying this stuff by now. You should put some put some effort into knowing what the job is and what it entails and the things about the job. Now I'll come right off the get go. I'm going to tell you right now, head and shoulders above everybody else. Jacob Feehan, that boy is a public speaker. I mean, he just nailed it. He was, if you watch him, he put it out there. He engaged with the audience. He was, constantly looking around. I mean, he is a very, very polished speaker. And like I said, I just think he was head and shoulders above everybody else the way, in his presentation. Now, one of the things too that I'm going to say here, while we got talking about Jacob, is I think he was really well spoken, but you had to pay attention to what he was saying. One of the things that I caught that kind of I know a couple of people had commented on it, and I had quite a few conversations about this today. He talked about our infrastructure being good, and then he contradicted himself in another question that the infrastructure was not good. Talking about, I think was his number one concern here is the roads, and that's part of our infrastructure. And our roads are obviously one of the major concerns around here. So with that there, I caught that there. He really did. I'll say this here because I know people have heard stuff. We were commenting. I was having conversations. I wasn't concerned about the fact that we were recording and it was live, but like everybody else, I have my opinion on things. I felt that he put a lot of fluff in with his. I mean, when he opened up his opening statement, I mean, he really harped and focused on the fact that he's Republican, and then he goes into, he starts quoting some stuff from the foundation of this country, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I get that. I mean, it's, I don't know much about him. I've heard people tell me he's a political science major. He's an English major. He may be both. There was comments up there that he's been here all of his life. Somebody else commented they moved here in the 7th grade, or when he was 7 years old, I think is what it was. Graduated from Scottsdale High School. I just don't know enough about him to really give you what his background is. I have reached out to him and never heard a response, so I just don't have that information. Maybe somebody who is very familiar, can provide that information. But yeah, like I said, I think there was comment about him working on a campaign, a major campaign at some point. So I could see that there. I could see a lot of what he had to say. I could see that being used in a campaign, on a campaign trail with any kind of candidate. I mean, he would be a phenomenal speechwriter. And I'll even say this here, I think that boy there has the potential to write some of the best grants that's ever come out of this county and probably ever come out of the state. He's just, he's ahead of his time in regards to certain things, but I think he still needs he needs to get more involved and understand how local politics actually operate. So that's part of it. And he didn't have any notes. I mean, he was up there. He was very well rehearsed. Like I said, he was by far the most polished speaker up there. Now, I'm going to also say this here. Robin McCready really did a good job last night. He showed his experience as the current sitting mayor. I mean, he did a really good job. He spoke things that a lot of people may not understand, but what really matters about what the job entails. and he was really good at getting that point across. Now, he did talk about. I mean, he was in a smart move. He pushed his the positive things that he's done as a mayor. He got out there and sold those things. But there was one thing that really just stood out to me, and it caught my attention. Towards the tail end, when he was closing, and actually it was two things that kind of stood out there. Number one is that microphone, like I said, at that podium, it just was rumbling like crazy. And it almost looked like he got mad at the microphone and shoved it down, which created a lot of noise, and pulls the microphone off of the thing and walks over there to the moderator, and they switched microphones. And then instead of going back behind the podium again, Robbie comes out to the front of the stage and starts talking. And while he was talking, he said, "I'm going to get my time from this bad microphone," or something, or because of the microphone, something to that effect. So, that was, let's go back to what we, the newspaper yesterday morning putting out there about the him flying up to the Rotary meeting and confronting Mayor Wildridge. There seems to be some anger issues there, and I think that kind of slid out a little bit last night. The other thing that he said that really kind of didn't sit well with me was he mentioned that he has a way to get the roads fixed without raising taxes. Now, I'm going to say this here. He's the mayor. If he's got a way to get these roads fixed without raising taxes, don't make us wait to re-elect you. Get to work now. You are a sitting mayor. You need to get these roads fixed. If you have a way to do it, and it's not going to cost us any tax increases, then get to work on it. But let's just be honest about stuff. When it comes to the roads, at the end of the day, it is not up to the mayor. Everything how this works is the roads actually falls under the superintendent, which is Steve Vineyard. So, Steve makes the calls there. The mayor does not. So, we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm really curious to see if we even hear anything else about it, or if that was just a sales pitch from last night to try to get more votes. Anyway, but like I said, I think overall, I believe that Robbie did a good job presenting himself. Blake Mitchell. And I know you all see Blake up here on the podcast quite often. He was definitely not up here tonight for a reason. Because we don't want to be biased in any way. Blake did a good job. I'm going to say a great job in presentation and coming across from a different perspective than the other candidates. It's easy for, I don't know, last mayor election, we were told about transparency. And I despise that freaking term, because guess what? We don't never get it. We did not get transparency in this administration. That's one of the concerns that I have, is we don't have transparency, but everybody wants to use the term. Now, Blake was talking more, he talked about transparency like everybody else did. But he talked about constitutional rights, and that's something that I just didn't hear from the other candidates. And I think that kind of sets him apart. Now, at this point in time frame, we all know that Mayor McCready and Chief Deputy Stegall had Blake removed from the county courthouse following a meeting, violating his constitutional rights. So Blake wants to ensure that the people actually have a voice, and he came across and presented it that way. Now, I will say this here with Blake. He did have stuff written down. I don't know if he had the same notice as everybody else, because as everybody knows, or should know, Blake is running as an independent candidate. He is not in the Republican primary, so you will not see his name on the May 5th ballot. Blake's name won't come on the ballot until the August 6th general election. Whoever wins the mayor's seat, the mayor's primary, Republican primary, will have to go head-to-head with Blake in August. So that's the reason you don't see him on the whatchamacallit, because he is running as an independent. He's not running as a Democrat. He's running as an independent. And what he's doing is and and Blake and I had conversations about this here. The one reason that Blake did not want to run as Republican is if you look at the Republican Party's their GOP bylaws in the state of Tennessee, to be a bona fide candidate, which is required by law, to be a bona fide candidate, you have to have voted in 3 of the last 4 state Republican primaries. And I believe that Blake had, if I remember correctly, looking back on the things, I don't know if I even looked at them because he wasn't running. Number 2, you have to also be part of the Republican organization. It's and understand that there is if they have, we have a local Republican Party here in Henderson County. You have to be an active member of this here, and it has to be a Republican approved organization. We hardly got anybody that ever shows up to the meetings. I mean, most of the time I've talked to other Republicans that engage, and I mean, until this last meet and greet they had at the farmhouse cafeteria, I mean, most of the time when they had dinners, like 4 or 5 people showed up. They just didn't have anybody show up. Nobody was active in the local party. So realistically, if you go back in here and you go true to the word of what Republican GOP bylaws state, we may have 4 or 5 people in all of out of all 56 candidates, there may be 4 or 5 that are actually bona fide Republicans. Most are not. And that's what Blake didn't. He understood the law, and he didn't want to go that route. So anyway, that's explaining the reason he's running as an independent. Now, let's get in here. Blake, again, when he got up there, Blake had notes. And he did a lot of reading from his notes. One of the things that I think that Blake lacked last night was personality. He seemed very... he's an attorney. It kind of reminded me of him sitting in a courtroom and stating the facts, narrow down the line, this is it. And he's trying to... he doesn't want to interject anything personal in there to keep from muddying up the waters, I guess you could say, in the trial. So I kind of that's what I kind of saw from him last night, was he acted more like a lawyer, and I think that he missed a spot there where he could have had more personality, more been more engaging with the audience. He kind of seemed on track with what he was trying to present to the crowd, and like I said, it just kind of lacks some personality. I've got a couple of things up in here. Why did Robbie decide to run again? He announced that he wasn't going to run again. I wonder what changed his mind. I don't have an answer to that, but you are correct. At the last State of the County address last year, he announced that he was not going to run again. He even sent out an email to the commission back in November that he wasn't going to run again. And pretty much in that email, he stated about threats being made towards him and his family. So I don't have an answer to that, to be honest with you. Believe the mayor can guide the commission on the budget towards the road supervisor's budget. The mayor can. Tell you what, the mayor can, if he had $100 million that he wanted to give the road superintendent. Yeah, he could probably work with the commission to take and approve that $100 million. Don't mean that road superintendent has to spend that $100 million where the mayor wants or where the commission wants. It's his money, it's his department. He makes it. He is an elected official, and he has total discretion to spend his money however he wants to spend it. I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of it. So I'm just wondering how all this here plays out where he made that comment. So, we'll have to see how this goes. Anyway, let's move on into Gary Riffle. Gary was kind of to the point with his comments. He didn't elaborate a lot. The one thing he just kind of stated where he was at. He's definitely opposed to property taxes. He made that pretty clear. He also he made some comments that I think that kind of reflect on where we have been up until recently. That he would be an available mayor. Now there's, I mean, heck, I mean that's one of the things that I've heard quite a bit. I've heard a lot of people say that Mayor McCready's never at the office, and I guess he's probably changed that now since he's decided to run again. But he was never at the office; he was always at his restaurant working. So I think that's one of the things that Gary was probably I'm gonna say he's throwing some shade over there. But yeah, he was talking about he's going to be an available mayor. You reach out to him, he's going to be there. You contact him, he'll have his cell phone number. He's going to be an available mayor. So he came across good in that point of trying to sell it. The one thing that he stated, and I don't think he understands this here, and this was actually kind of brought back up by Darren McDaniel in his random question, and we'll kind of segue into that there. Gary talked about how the property reappraisals went up, and the tax rate stayed the same. That's not true. That's not how that works. When we had the property reappraisals, and we've been over this here, we've put it out on the page quite a few times. What happens is when properties get reappraised here, some people's property goes up in value, some people's property goes down in value, some of them stays the same. Generally, if you want to look at it, there's a percentage, just a trip point, whether your property value is going up, staying the same, or going below, or dropping. What happens is, when you look at things, land, generally the appraisal value on land goes down a little bit. Mobile homes reappraisals generally drop pricing down. Where you start seeing it is homes, improvements on properties. That's where you start seeing it, the increase in reappraisal value. And generally, I'll say this here from what we found from the last reappraisal and information that was sent to us and talking with people, it is the middle class that got the hit the hardest. We had friends that that went from. You would think it's not about dollar amount. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine had a house that was worth $500,000. It went up to $850,000, and guess what? His taxes went down. Yet we've had people over here that had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick ranch home that went from like $100 and something to almost $300,000. Well, their property taxes went up. It's not about the dollar amount. It's about the percentage of increase. But here's the deal. When reappraisals happen, and let's sit there and say, okay, well, they were collecting $10 million a year at the current tax rate, and these reappraisals jump these prices up. Well, now they're making $20 million a year at the current tax rate. They can't do that. It is against the law. That is a windfall of tax increases. What happens is, when the tax reappraisal comes back in, and they sit there and say, okay, well, you've been collecting $10 million, and now you're going to collect $20 million. We have to adjust your tax rate down. So there's an equalization board at the state. They look at these two numbers, and they take and change your tax rate to go back in. So yes, you got a lot of higher values in houses, but the county's not collecting any more money because they equalize the rate, so it comes back down to the same $10 million that they had in the beginning. When that happens, that comes back down to the board, to the commission. The commission votes to approve that tax rate, or they can vote to approve that tax rate, and they can also vote to implement a tax. But they cannot have a windfall gain on a property tax based off of reappraisal values. So that's how that is clarified. There's no additional money that's come in there. That's just where that's how it comes about. That there we want to bring that clarity in there. Now also, like I said, I'm going to come in with Darren McDaniel because this was his question, and he talked about that there. And he kind of said the same thing. He said, we can go up here and argue the value with the state, but that's not necessarily how the whole thing works. Again, yeah, you can argue on a reappraisal value, but you really have to understand how the taxes are actually applied. When you get the new tax, you don't know until you get the new tax rate down, and the commission actually approves that tax rate. So once they approve it, then you can tell now if somebody's property taxes are going up or if they're going down. Remember this here now. If you take people's property taxes has gone up, and you want to come back in here and say, I don't like this reappraisal, and you argue it to get the reappraisal back down, and you succeeded at getting back down, well, now you're no longer collecting that $10 million in property taxes. If you've got 500 people that you've come in here and you've reduced their appraisal values, well, at that new tax rate, well, guess what? You're losing money. You may not be collecting but $9 million, and you just had a budget shortfall. So that's got to be you got to pay attention to those things there and how that actually works. And again, this is something where, attending meetings, paying attention, doing some research, all this stuff is available, but it takes work. And to me, that's something that a candidate should be willing to take and do, should be able to do their homework before they decide to run. I mean, that's one of the things that really kind of annoyed me, and I did see that last night. There's quite a few things brought up where people just were not knowledgeable on the subject, and that concerns me for somebody who's up here running for mayor. So like I said, it does require work. It does require spending time and effort to research. So that's where that is. And I do have a question: where does the property tax money go? The property tax gets dispersed to a lot of places. It pretty much covers the general fund. A little bit of the property tax actually goes into the school systems. Now, and this is something too that I want to kind of go back on, because Mayor McCready had mentioned last night about, well, we had $3.6 million or $3.8 million in unreserved funds when he started, and now we are at 4.5. Now I want to explain something to you guys on this here, because is there an increase? Yes, there is, but let's understand why that increase is. We're going to go back during Eddie Bray's administration. One of the things that we kept talking about, and you guys probably remember this here, $10 million football stadium. What happens is, every year we get, I'm not going to say every year, but during that time frame, when all this was happening, our sales tax started going through the roof. And let me tell you how the sales tax went through the roof. The first thing was the Supreme Court of the United States approved and said it was legal for states to charge sales tax on items purchased outside of the state. You could order something online and you never paid sales tax on it. If I order something from Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, Virginia, any state that bordered North Carolina, bordered Tennessee, or if I ordered from California, you never paid sales tax on it because you were purchasing from outside the state lines. Well, the Supreme Court allowed the states to come in here and start charging sales tax for out-of-state sales. So what's happened now is all of a sudden you've got a boom in every single order. Now everybody is paying sales tax. Well, you just created a huge sales tax bump. Huge. And we saw that bump. Well, then we go on top of that there. Then we come into COVID. And with COVID, what was happening? People weren't going out. People weren't going to Jackson. They were shopping locally, and most of them were ordering online. Well, guess what? Again, sales tax revenues all increasing here because the money is staying here in Henderson County. It wasn't going outside of our border. So we saw another spike in money coming in from sales taxes. And then, once COVID kind of ends, we sit here, everybody's got cabin fever. And so, we kind of saw a little bit of a lull there, which was fine. But then here comes inflation rearing its ugly head. Inflation happens, well, guess what? If a product you used to spend $1 for is now $5, Well, instead of collecting 10 cent or 9.75 cent, I'm going to round it up to 10 cent. Instead of collecting 10 cent, you're now collecting 50 cent. Well, that's a lot of difference because inflation creates more revenue in sales tax. So, when inflation hits us, we're stuck with it. We got to pay for it, but the government reaps the benefits of it. So, keep that in mind next time you talk about inflation and you want to know something. The winner here is the government because of sales tax. So anyway, sales tax increased. Well, what happens is the school system is required, they have a set amount that they have to get every year. That's called maintenance of effort. That number can never drop except for a couple of things. The school board itself can say, yeah, we'll let you cut. We don't have to get as much. So we can drop it down. Or their attendance can drop, and that can cause it to drop as well. What was happening was all this sales tax growth, instead of coming into the county general fund like it should have been doing, the finance director was funneling it all over there to the school board. Now, this is back during the Wilkerson days. So that's what was happening. Well, now all of a sudden, here's the school board with the windfall of our sales tax. Our sales tax growth was all going to the schools. The county wasn't reaping any benefits from it. The general fund wasn't reaping any benefits of it. All going to the schools. And what happens? Did they fix roofs? No. They built a $10 million stadium. And who knows how much that is, because I'm going to tell you right now, the numbers have jumped around so much. In meetings, the numbers jumped around constantly. Who knows how much that football stadium cost. But all that growth money went in there. Well, that's one of the things that we were complaining about. Now, when Mayor McCready gets in office, one of the things he does is to sit there and say, okay, we're going to bring this, we're going to adjust this back down. So we're going to get our sales tax growth back. It's not sales tax growth. Where that sales tax growth exceeded, they were able to take it away in property tax because all they have to do is meet that minimum of whatchamacallit, of maintenance of effort. That's all that they're required to give. So all this money that the school systems were getting, and they spend it on one item instead of worrying about infrastructure, boom. That was all lost from the county. So once they made the adjustment, well, all of a sudden now, they've got more money coming back in. So yeah, does it look like there was, there's no magical tree that created this boon of income. It was simply an issue of allocating the money where it was supposed to go in the first place, or should have gone in the first place, to make sure that there was growth in the schools and the general fund. That's all he had to do. And we had already brought that information out before he ever got in office. So, this was not anything magical that he did or anything special that he did. That's just what it was. So anyway, we've kind of got an understanding of that and how that money has come in, and the reason we've got excess money coming back in our reserves where we didn't have it in the past. And I still got numbers to look through, but we're not going to get into that right now. So, all right, let's get into to Darren McDaniel. I'm going to say this about Darren. Darren was he said what he. I'm going to say this here. He said what a typical politician would say. And I've heard, and again, this is kind of the same thing that Feehan was saying, is we need more industry, we need more industry, we need more industry. We need more jobs. Look, people, we don't need no more jobs. We don't need no more industry. Our problem right now is our infrastructure is in such bad shape. I mean, you start putting more traffic out on these roads, they're going to get worse. They're not going to get better. We're not inviting to any industry wanting to come in here because our roads are in such bad shape. I mean, they come in here, it's like, what on earth is going on? If y'all can't take care of this here, how can you take care of providing me a strong workforce for my company and providing me solid utilities when you can't even keep your roads up? So, we don't have, our initial first presentation, our first impression is you come in here and you hit crappy roads. I mean, that first impressions are lasting impressions. I heard that growing up all my life. So, we've got to take and look at things here. And we all know that there's water issues right now. I mean, How many posts have we seen about that? How many posts have we put up about that there? How many pictures have been sent in? The polls that we put up. I mean, it's just we have issues with water. Um, so bottom line is we've got issues that we need to work on. Now, granted, that's not part of the county responsibility as far as the utilities are concerned, but the roads are. So, again, before we look at industry and trying to bring in jobs, and I'll tell you what, we're not going to be able to sit up here and cherry pick and say, okay, well, we got A and B industries that want to come in, and they're paying $50 an hour for a skilled laborer. We've got C and D industry that wants to come in, they're paying $48 an hour. And then we got D and E coming in here, and they're only paying $40 an hour. We don't get to pick what industry comes in here. And if we're doing that there, then you know what? That's not a smart way to take and build your county up. We can't pick and choose and tell people how much they can take and pay people. And what happens the moment you bring in a higher paying industry and all of a sudden you just cut the throats of your other industry? You want me to tell you what happens? Well, don't move to Henderson County, because they'll take and rob Peter to pay Paul over here, and they left us belly up, and we're having to move out. Also, this is something that most people don't realize. There is a thing called pilot. I want to explain that to you. Payment in lieu of taxes. When a business comes in here and buys land and brings in an industry, we don't reap any tax benefits from that. Not initially. There may be some that comes in here, but what they do is they give them tax abatements to say, all right, you know what, you guys come in here and bring this industry in, and when we do that there, we're going to give you tax breaks because you're bringing in jobs. Well, where are we going to get people? Right now, we have jobs open all around here. We don't have a workforce for it. Our unemployment numbers are low. It's just, when you get down to it, we just don't have the workforce. Now, we're drawing back off of other places, but at some point in time frame, you have to start looking this, we don't have the workforce. Now, the first response you always get is, oh, yeah, well, we need to get taxes. We need to build houses and stuff. You know what? Okay, you build houses, and you bring a bunch of people in. Again, you're tearing your roads up. You're taking and overworking a dilapidated utility department that is just, top heavy in salaries and barely getting any kind of work done to it. We can't keep sitting here and trying to sit there and say, well, we got to create more revenue. No, you got to fix the problems you've got. You've got to get in here and you've got to work these issues out. You've got to figure out a way to take and cut back on the spending. I'm going to tell you right now, it just blows my mind when you come back and you look at the salaries inside the city and compare them to the county. Or the benefits it's given, and compare the salaries out to the industries out in town. Heck, you know what? You want a good paying job? Go to work for the government, because that's where you get it. You get great benefits as well. That's the thing is, heck, I talk to people who work in industries around here. What are y'all getting for Christmas bonuses? Christmas bonuses? We're lucky if we get a turkey. They're not getting big money like we're giving employees in the county or the city. So we've got issues there that need to be worked down. They need to quit this recurring expenses that is killing us and keeping us from fixing the problems that we have. Bottom line is, we all pay taxes in. Our taxes are designed to be there to provide us a service. It is not to be there to take and make sure that Billy Bob's son gets paid good money to work here at the city. That's not what it's about. That's not why we pay taxes. That is not it at all. But that's what's happening here. And then you also got to sit here and look at things when we're dealing with stuff like the event center. This is something that came up again last night. No, we do not need to build an event center. You want to tell you what, now this conversation's been going around, and the first thing that I hear from everybody, we need a multi-use event center. I've asked questions, and I keep hearing the same thing, because when everybody talks about an event center, they only talk about one thing. Well, we can use it for the Carl Perkins Dancing with the Stars event and other stuff. Okay, you know what? If you're coming up in here and saying, hey, you know what? We're going to have rock concerts 3 times a year. We're going to have country concerts 3 times a year. We're going to have rodeo 3 times a year. We're going to have this and that. Then that tells me there's some planning. But if you only give me one example of what it can be used for, that tells me you haven't done anything whatsoever to figure out what else is going to happen there. You're just going to use the word multi-use, so that's the reason we need to have it, because we're going to use it for more than one thing. No, that's not the way it works. We don't have the money to come in here and build an event center unless you want to tax people more. And you know, I'm tell you what, people get about tired of it. I mean, it's just they're getting tired of it. So figure out a way to say, hey, you know what, we really don't need an event center. Because we don't. It's not going to do us any good right now, and no more than the use that people are having to go outside of the county to make use of it. Then go. Just go. Continue to do it. It's working. It's fine. Just continue to do that there. But to sit up here and talk about a $5 or $10 million expense is just absolutely insane. I mean, the city is so far in debt. Yes, the county's coming out of debt, but you know what? Look at the roads. If they're coming out of debt, if they want to take on more debt, fix the roads. I'm sorry, but I ain't going to be driving on top of a building, a multi-use event center. That's just ignorant to even think about that there when our roads are so bad. And the roads are not going to get better by themselves. It's just like the roofs on the school systems. It's not getting better by themselves. Instead of building a football stadium, we should have fixed the roofs on the schools, because that affects everything else. But this is how, I'm just going to say this here, this is how the good old boy system has always worked. We're going to get what we want to get, and that's it. And the hell with the rest of the stuff, we don't care. As long as we get what we want to get. And that's what's going on. Yeah, is it a new football stadium nice? Sure it is. But is it needed? No. Are roofs on the schools needed so we don't have to worry about black mold encroaching? Yes. The safety and well-being of our children has to be number one priority when it comes to the school systems. But, you know, getting out of that there, let's go in here and get back into where we were at. Shelly Alexander. She's, I'm sorry, I really didn't get in with Darren. Let me finish up with Darren first. Like I said, with Darren, what I really felt like was he was a scripted politician, and I think this is probably based on the help that Darren's probably getting with this election. And pretty much what he was doing was he had his notes, and he was kind of reading on his notes, and that's kind of how he everything played with him there. So again, you know, it's kind of that scripted thing that's happened here that we saw a lot with all of this stuff here. But you know, so I don't think Darren did too bad. It's just, you know, I just didn't feel anything organic there. I just felt like I felt like something was written up for him, and that's kind of what he stayed in that lane. All right, moving on. Like I said, with Shelly Alexander, she's the last one we're going to cover on this here. I'm going to tell you, Shelly did something that I didn't see with any of the other candidates, and I think it was a smooth move on. When she would say something, she would pause, and she'd kind of look around, and then she'd go on to the next thing. By doing so, she actually put emphasis on her point at that, and she's looking for reaction from the crowd. And it was a tough crowd last night. I mean, it really was. But, you know, I saw that there, and I thought that was kind of a smooth move on her part to do that there. Just to take the time to judge how the crowd was reacting to what she was saying. Now, I'm going to say something else, too. She's a character. She's an absolute character. One of the terms I've heard in the past, I don't believe she's got no filter. She's going to speak what she wants to speak, and that's what you get. I mean, I think you get her at face value, and I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing that she's able to do that there. So, you know, it's yeah, I think she did okay, but I'm going to say there was the topics, I think, is where she was off. You know, now she was also talking about the event center and things for our kids to do in this county, and I agree with that. We need things for our kids to do, but I'm going to say this here about the thing for kids to do, because I hear this quite often. We all old. We don't have the slightest clue what these kids want to do. Growing up, our parents didn't have the slightest kids idea on what we enjoyed. You know, we did what they wanted us to do with them because that's what they thought we needed. We need to be talking to our kids to find out what they would like to have. Do they want a bowling alley? Probably not. Would they like to have a place where they can go sit around and play video games, or a lounge where they can hang out with their buddies, and share texts back and forth, or whatever? I don't know. I mean, that's probably something I would see more kids doing now. Or maybe what the heck's that thing? We have to have it for our son. Snapchat, or Instagram, or any of these other things that goes on. We don't know. We need to be talking with them instead of us adults coming up with ideas for kids. Let's find out what the kids like, and then go from there. You know, it may not be what everybody thinks we need to have, and I think that's one of the things is, and we can't just go off. Oh, I talked to my kid and they said it, so this is what we got to have. No, there's more than one kid in this county, and so maybe we need to sit here and find out from them what they want, or what they need, or what they think they would like to have fun. I mean, it's just, yeah, I hear about kids getting in trouble all the time. I just don't see it. I just don't see what everybody says. And I'm tell you what, kids would, I don't see where they're much different than what we were growing up. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. I think I think we've got a bad rap on them, and we're making a little bit bigger issue of this here than what it should be. That's just my personal opinion. I'll say that there. But anyway, that's one of the things that I kind of look at is, if we want to do something for the kids, we need to find out what the kids want. Coming out here and doing something that we want to do may not be what they want. That's just the bottom line of it. Alrighty. And there you go. Answer some questions here. Best jobs in the county or city are their jobs. And I agree with you. That's county jobs. 100% in the city, you get 100% of your benefits paid and 60% of your family's benefits paid. And I'm going to tell you right now, when you come up in here, they making some bank. Some serious money in the city. Crazy. I kind of agree with that there too. A clean slate. We kind of need to look at this thing here a whole lot different. We need some fresh eyes on this here. We don't have that right now. We've got the same stagnant thing that's going on over and over and over again. And we get the same stagnant response every single time, and the same stagnant action. What is continuing to happen is the good old boys are benefiting themselves off of your money. You need to change the people in office to get rid of the ones who are up here working off of your dime trying to make themselves better. They need to be up here doing what they can to provide you services with your money. And here we go. Yeah, roads definitely need to be fixed. I'm gonna come up in here. Kids' activities best served by the private sector, not the government. Exactly. It's not the taxpayers' responsibility to entertain kids in the county. Exactly. These are truths. Again, it's one of these things here. If we're gonna sit up in here and look at something, then let's find out what the kids want, and then court it. If you want to court an outside company to come in here to specialize in what they're looking for, then do so. Somebody's got to do some work at some point in time frame, other than sit there and say, I want to get this, I want to get that, and I want to get this, and that's all I'm worried about. No. You have a job to do, and that is to provide services to us. So, getting back in here, that's pretty much a wrap-up of what's happened with the mayor's side of things. Like I said, I think and the sheriff's side of things, Tracy Grisham showed out the strongest last night. As far as the mayor side of things, I'm going to have to say it's kind of a toss-up between uh, Robbie, Blake, and Jacob. Those three just kind of set themselves apart from the other ones. Jacob for his public speaking, Robbie for his experience, and Blake for his knowledge and fresh approach. So that's kind of how I would round those up there. And again, that's just my personal opinion. But the other stuff is factual information that you guys really need to have. There's so much stuff that goes on here that there is no transparency in this county. They do everything, politicians do everything in their possible power to keep you from knowing what's going on. That's just the truth of the matter. And then they get mad when they don't get their way. I mean, that's just what happens around here, and it all needs to change. Anyway, one more thing I want to get here before I close, because I'm been long-winded here. As everybody knows, I am leaving here probably tail end of June. We've got a little bit more information. I talked to our son. He's transferring from San Diego to Goose Creek, South Carolina. His ship time got switched up a little bit, so he's probably not coming out. We thought June 1st, but he's probably not going to leave out to around about mid-June now. So it's probably going to be the tail end of June, us getting out here, maybe the 1st of July. If it is, but by July 4th will be my Independence Day from here. I'm headed back to Virginia. And until that point, I'm taking a different approach. I've talked with the admin about it, and they're kind of understanding it. I have endured character attack after character attack after character attack. The last crap that they're actually out there funneling right now is that I'm a convicted felon. It's... Let me say this here. On this page and on this podcast and anything that I engage with, I go after the issues. I attack the actions. Yes, do I attack? Yes, I attack the actions. When I see something, your money being spent wrong, or your services not being provided to you that you should be having, I go after that for you. I go after it for me. And you know what? Can I be aggressive? Can I be verbally strong-winded? Absolutely, I can. I don't deny it whatsoever. But what I'm going after is the action. The problem is when you have actions, somebody's created the action. And they think that what I'm doing is a character attack. It's not a character attack. The character issue there is the person who's created the action that I'm going after. When they do something wrong in government, I am going to point it out. That is my civic responsibility that I take upon myself. Nobody else has to do it. But I'm going to say this here. 2 members got removed this morning, Cole Ashland and Brian White. Now, Brian has had years to come in here and work on arguing anything that I put out, but the only thing he wants to go out here and go after is attacking my character. So bottom line is he's gone. Cole Ashland, he pretty much just started up here. I hadn't ever heard much of him before now, but he's gone. And if you go back in, I'm going to say this here, and yeah, this here may be a character attack, but I'm going to start looking at common denominator stuff. You go back and you look at their posts, big Robbie McCready fans, and if everybody knows by now, Robbie and I don't get along. Now, I'll give him credit where his credit is due, just like tonight, I think, and last night, what he did, I think he did a great job. I'll give him his credit. But I'm not going to pull punches on anybody, and that's the problem here is people don't like it. And they can get past it. I really don't care. But I am not going to sit here and allow people to come after my character anymore. I've dealt with it for the longest time, and I'm not doing it anymore. I'll be gone in a few months, and that's it. If they want to go on their own page and attack me, I don't care, but they are not coming on this taxpayers page. I started this page with Nick Mock, and we built this page up, and we have continued to work hard. We have got new admins. We've worked through admins, and we've got people in here, but we have worked hard to provide you with information that is pertinent to you. We've done our best to try to educate you on things. And all they can ever do is they never, not once, and I have offered it 1,000,000 times, and I'm offering it again. Anytime, any place, you name it. With the exception of Maine Monroe, I'm not going in there. Name the place, and I'll go and let's debate the information that I bring out. And I have not had one single challenger ever come up and sit there and say, yes, you know what, I'll debate you on the information you brought out. Because bottom line is, the information I bring out, I have researched it, I have studied it, and I make sure that I'm bringing you factual information. They can't argue that. The only thing they can ever argue is they try to go after people's character. That's it. Because they don't have anything else to go on. So you know what? When you start seeing these things here, when people out there bad-mouthing me and blowing me up, just take a look. Because I guarantee you, you can figure it out that they don't know jack about me. And all they're doing is attacking me because they're afraid that I'm going to take... They want to try to shoot the messenger. And they know that people listen. And that's, that's the way it is. But I've been kind of passive. I've kind of allowed things to go. But I'm done with that there. If I'm up here attacking issues. But if you want to come after my character, then you'll hit the train. Ain't no big issue at all. No skin off my butt. I try to allow for it. And I'm going to tell you right now, do not, oh my gosh, do not come at me and tell me I'm violating your First Amendment rights. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you can go and talk all the crap you want about me. I don't care. But you're not going to do it on a private page that has public access. That's my page. You don't have to come up. You're not allowed to come on my page and talk trash about me. That's just the way it is. I don't go on anybody else's page and do that. I don't. So I'm going to hold them to the same way. That's what's happened here is people have bullied and bullied and bullied to stay in position. And I'll tell you what, that's what they're not used to. That's what I have done is I've actually not stood down to that bully. I've stood up to them. And when you guys stand up to the bullies, you will make a difference. This is your county. It doesn't belong to a clique or a sect group or people who think that they're better than anybody else. And I'll tell you right now, they are nothing without tough words. But when you stand up to them, they back right on down. Been doing it that way the whole time. So you guys keep up with paying attention to that there, and know who the characters are, know who the actors are. It's the same old usual suspects over and over and over again. Anyway, like I said, I didn't want to end that there on a bad note. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come back in here and give some positive stuff here. As y'all know, like I said, I started this here off. We're moving. We have a young lady named Gracie Bromley. She started with us on Tuesday. We are giving Gracie our business. She is going to take over May 30th as our last day, and she'll be running the business from that point forward. It will be her business to do as she sees. And no, we are not selling the business. We are giving it to her. Our customers matter more to us than anything else. And leaving them in good hands is that's the most valuable thing to us. Money doesn't measure everything. And this is a young lady who's coming in here. She's got what it takes to succeed, and you know what? And if we can do something to help out, then that's what we're doing. Because it doesn't hurt to do the right thing. So if any of you guys are ever in the neighborhood, I get a lot of people stop by and talk to me. I don't know how many I had today. Step in and say hello to Gracie. Welcome her to the business, and even if you're not a customer, guys, just stop in and say hello, or and just stop in and say hello to me or April. We're here to we make a lot of friends here, and that's going to be the hardest part of us leaving is leaving our friends behind. But I do also want to give a shout out to Fan Cave Pizzeria. Whew. Boy, they got some good pizza. They got some good wings too. If y'all don't get out there to Fan Cave, y'all definitely got to try it. That place is awesome. We with the white truffle mushroom and the Thai pie. We tried new. Boy, I'm gonna tell you, just good pizza. And like I said, their wings. We had a little thing. Thank you, D. We don't get paid on this page. That's one thing we do not do. We do not sell any advertisements. We do not do any of the whatever. I don't know how all that stuff works. That's not what this page. This page is strictly voluntary. We don't get anything. We did have one of our members actually came by with a $100 gift card and was insistent that do we take it? So what I did with that $100 gift card was I actually bought dinner for all of the admins, for all of their hard work that they've done. And I thank you guys. You know, y'all been through some rough patches with me, and I appreciate y'all sticking it out with me. I really do. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. And again, thank you, Dee. Yeah, you know, for offering that gesture. That was very, very nice of you. And trust me, I've been offered quite a few things in the past. I've always turned them down because I never wanted anybody to think that the page was for sale, that ours was for sale, or that it would sway our how we do things. Because we just don't. You know, it's kind of like, you know, I'll say this here too. You know, Blake Mitchell is my friend, and I am supporting Blake in this race. I think he is probably the best thing for the county. But tonight I had to call out the same thing that I saw in his speech last night. So, you know, we don't pull punches. We don't take and show favoritisms. We don't have bias and try to go after and protecting our own. We just put the truth out there, and what the truth is what the truth is. And so, you know, I want you guys to understand that there. It's what we do. I'm going to answer a couple of these questions here that we've got popping up here, and then I'm going to call it a night. Yeah, you're right about that, April. They want to bully people to make them back down. I'm going to tell you what, the best way to fix a bully, stand up to them. There you go, D. They want to make me the problem instead of facing the problem. That's what it boils down to. I mean, anything they can do to distract off of what they're doing. That's just what they do. That's right, Damon. I did hear that comment last night about the mayor's commission. And you're right. It is our commission, not the mayor's. Matter of fact, he serves at the will of that commission. Because he doesn't have to be the chairman. They can easily remove him as the chair. And you guys probably don't remember this here, but he sent out an email to him about stepping down from the commission. We'll be bringing that back up here in the near future, because we are going to be reminding you guys of everything that's happened in the last 4 years, so you know what's going on, so you can take that in consideration when you're placing your vote. Thank you. You will definitely be missed. Thank you. I'll definitely miss y'all as well. That's I just can't speak it enough. Try the barbecue chicken Philly sandwich. I'll have to give that a shot. Nobody will search out the truth like you have done, James. You have put up with a ton of crap that most would back away from. You will be missed. Thank you. You know what? I don't know, and I'm coming down here. Jerry's like, who's going to take over the broadcast? I'm not sure who's going to be doing the podcast moving forward. I know Blake probably will, Candy probably will, Chris will probably get in. They'll probably work together on these things here. I'm not sure about Angela. I think she has to be a little more conscientious of what she does because she does work a nonprofit. And she's trying to do the right things around here. I would say that they're going to probably step up and start working at this here. There might be a couple of other names and faces, maybe not initially. I know one that I expect probably tail end of next year, late summer next year, will probably step into a role on the taxpayers page. I'll tell you the truth. Just because I'm not physically here, I still do a podcast. I mean, I can sit up at home and do that back in Virginia. That's not a big issue. And more than likely, I probably will. If nothing else, just to check in and spend 10, 15 minutes and seeing how you guys are doing. So, you know, that's, just because I may not be here doesn't mean I've gone. Yeah, the page will survive. The page will continue to grow. I think, you know, talking with Blake, you know, we were even talking about, mentioning if he happens to win the mayor's race, I think he's still going to use the page as a platform to share information with people because we have a lot of followers, and you know I think that's that's important. It's a resource, it's a tool that he can use because I don't know if any of the other ones would ever do it if they wanted to race, if they would use it as a tool that it's there for. This is a great way to reach a lot of people, um, because we've got a tremendous amount. Our following is far eclipses our membership states. Our membership is just those who decide to log on, join, become a member, and it helps them get notifications. We average somewhere. Hold on a second here. I'll find out. And we're down a little bit right now. 103,000 people for the week. So yeah, we're down a little bit. Generally we sit up around about 160, 170, 180. But yeah, we're down a little bit. But right now, I mean, still, we've got a lot of people who actually who watch this page. So yes, it is a very, very valuable tool. In addition, this page actually, we've got a lot of crossover in other counties in the state, and there's other people just like us in the state who have pages like this here. So we're actually kind of doing the same thing, and we communicate. So yeah, I think this is a tool that can help and grow and continue to network like it does. So yeah, I think the page is a great thing. It's really done a great job. All right, let me get here a couple more here. You are an inspiration, and I appreciate that, Damon. I really do. I appreciate our conversations too. Get your name on the ballot next time, brother. All righty. Yeah, I will definitely keep in contact, Nikki and Jessica. Like I said, I think this here is a great tool for me to use just to keep up with you guys. Let's see here. Second Amendment violations in Virginia. Stay put. Yeah, you're right about that, Tim. Boy, I'll tell you right now, I got my fight on my hands when I get back home. My biggest concern is they're talking about possession of multi-round magazines. Boy, I got to get home, get all that stuff packed up, and get it sent out to Ohio or somewhere. Yeah, I got to deal with it. I've got a mess on my hands when I get back. And I don't know. I may end up. I've been asked to look into politics when I get back home. I don't think I am. I'm kind of ready to retire and enjoy life and get myself back in shape and hit the road and do some traveling. Anyway. Opinions are just that. No matter what research you do, it's not always the truth. We're not dealing with opinions a lot of times here. Yes, do we have opinions? Obviously. But the thing is, we do the research. We get the information, so the information that we're sharing is factually based. Do we have an opinion based off of what we find factual information? Yeah, we certainly do. We sit here and we look at things, we calculate and weigh all the options in here, and we look at it from our opinion kind of based off of how it's impacting the majority of citizens in this county, and that's where we look at things when we deal with when we deal with stuff that's the information that we find. I'll give you a prime example here. Maybe just make it a little bit. I don't know how many times we've done this here, but we've done it quite a few times. We've actually stopped county and city meetings. Why? Because there's violation of state law. And those state laws are there to protect us. And they're there to make sure that our government is held in check. Now, when I sit up here and I say this is a violation of state law, then guess what? That is a fact. But when I sit there and say that it's wrong, and it either takes somebody who is intentionally misleading, not following the law, or who is intentionally ignorant of the law, I'm not going to say that's not intentional, it's just but ignorance of the law, either way it doesn't matter. That's an opinion, but it's based on fact. That's an example of what we talk about up here. It is against the law to have a meeting without an agenda 48 hours in advance. It's law. That's it. I mean, it's the law if you break the speed limit. I mean, that's the law. Follow the law. If you make, especially when we're dealing with government who makes the law, then yes, we hold them accountable to follow the law. But the bottom line is we research that there. And do we have an opinion on it? Obviously we do. Yeah, I think it's wrong when they break the law. Am I upset about it? Obviously. Because this is something that they shouldn't be doing. They need to be following the law. Government should be held to a higher standard. Whether they like it or not, that's beyond me. But I'm going to certainly step up and speak my mind about it. And I expect everybody else to do the same thing because they have the right to do so. That's why we have constitutional rights, which today Tennessee took a massive hit. I mean a massive hit. And I'm going to call out our state representatives and our senator right now. House Bill 1971, which the Senate bill was 1958. What it really does here is, if the government created a law that was unconstitutional, that violated the Constitution, you could sue the government and have that law challenged before it ever applied to you. Now, that's it. Let's say a Second Amendment, because Tim brought up a Second Amendment. So let's get up in here and talk about a Second Amendment here. When you're dealing with, and this is, I'll say this here, you're dealing with Second Amendment. Well, our federal Constitution guarantees us the right to keep and bear arms. I mean, common sense. Well, now, if they come in here and create a law, which they have laws on the books in Tennessee that are in violation of the Second Amendment, they didn't address some of them this time around. But if they come in here and they sit there and say, well, guess what? You no longer can have a magazine with more than 10 rounds. Well, that is a constitutional violation. Before today, you could sue the government. It would get a court ruling, and they would, a lot of times, would overthrow the law. Well, guess what happened today? Tennessee passed a new law that states if you sue the government, you have to show damages. Now, some of the language I read in there is physical damages or financial damages. So what this means is, and this is why the Second Amendment is a great example of this here. Okay, you have a 30-round magazine. Well, they just unruled that you can't have it. And you know what? It's all part of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is very, it's very clear in its intent. So bottom line is now they just outlaw and put a ban on it so you can't have more than 10-round magazine. Well, guess what? You cannot sue the Tennessee government anymore because they did that. Because the only way you can sue them is you have to show damages. Well, how are you going to show damages to sit there and say, well, I wanted to have a 30-round, but there's no damage there. So now they just shut you down so you cannot sue them because you have to be able to provide to show damage. And you can't show damage for certain things. So this is a major, major bill that got passed today. I will say that our state representatives, Brock Martin and Kurt Hastings, voted no on this bill. So kudos to you guys. Thank you very much. Senator Ed Jackson. I put this post up today, and I'm going to quote Lynyrd Skynyrd one more time. Boo, boo, boo. You voted to take and strip us of a right to come back in here and challenge government for creating unconstitutional laws. We should not have to prove damages for you creating an unconstitutional law. And that's pretty much what it says. So anyway, I'm putting that out there so people can kind of understand on things here. Anyway, I'm really getting past this point here. People couldn't deal with a true person. Political turns people the wrong way. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Absolutely. And you know what? There ain't no gray area in it. I don't care what anybody says. There's no gray area in the truth. It's just not. You know, it is. And you know what? And now, again, I try not to preach to people. I have my own personal relationship with God, but I'm going to say this here. I believe firmly, we are all created in His image. And in His image, we do know what is right from wrong. It's not just a physical being. and His image that we're talking about here. It's our what we know inherently. Right from wrong, we know it. We just choose to do something different, and that's one of the things that we have here. So, and I'll say this here one more time too. Again, I'm not trying to preach, but I'm going to get this here out there. People ask me all the time, how do you fight? How do you stand up and fight against this stuff here? You want me to tell you what? All of it is Him. I trust 100%. I have no doubt. My faith is stronger than anything exists. I believe. I've given my life. And I trust that He will always protect me. Nothing will happen to me until He wills it so. And I believe that. That's just what it is. If you can ever find that moment in your life where you have that epiphany to realize that just how great that protection is and how great that love is, it would change you up quite a bit. And there was something else I was going to talk about tonight, but I want to leave this here on this positive thing. Yeah. Like I said, I try not to take and preach, but if you don't have Jesus in your life, I mean, it's something that I believe in. People have the right to choose that. I believe that people have the right to choose whether they want to have God in their life. I don't believe that I have the right to tell anybody that. And I believe that if I leave that up to you and you decide that you ever want to come into God and His kingdom, then you'll come see me, because I'm not the one who's trying to push it on you. I'm leaving the door open, for those who want to learn, for those who want to be and understand what it's about. That door is always open. I don't believe in shutting doors. I think that's the wrong way to go about getting in His kingdom and speaking what He is. But I do believe that people should have that right to choose, and we shouldn't force them, especially not government. Government should not choose them. We have to take and do what is right for the people. I'll say this here: if you ever can get that feeling in your heart, there's nothing that compares. When you feel the Spirit moving you, it is so euphoric. Words just can't describe it. But anyway, I hope that everybody can, at some point in their life, feel that. Just the beauty and the power and the strength in it. Because when you do, it erases any doubt, and it's a great thing. That's my belief on things. So anyway, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off track there and go into preaching mode, because I'm certainly no preacher, and I am a sinner. I sin every day, but I've given my soul. My heart and soul belongs to my Lord and Savior. Yeah, that's it. Unimaginable peace. That's exactly what it is. It is. It's a great thing. It really is. I mean, there's just no words. I mean, and y'all know I can talk. But anyway, we're going to close this here off. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you for sticking in this here with me. Understanding that, what I try to do is to try to help people. And that's my sole focus. And it is what it is. I hope you guys have a wonderful and happy, safe Easter weekend. I know we've got Good Friday coming in tomorrow and Easter Sunday, so enjoy your times. Remember the reason for this holiday. I mean, this is it. This is eternal. It's what it is. But thank you so much for being part of this with me. I greatly appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful night, and we'll see you Monday night. We've got Gary Ross and Terry Beecham coming on at 7 o'clock. Happy Easter, everybody.